Hey now everybody, we're back, brand new episode of Take Aim, and this week I have Paul Curmi with me. Paul's one of the guys from the industry I've known for a long time, a fellow Michigander, and somebody I just love talking to and hanging out with when I get to see Paul. So super excited to have him on the show. He had a great season 2018, and we're going to get to hear all about it. So enjoy this week's episode. All right, guys, we are back and live, brand new Take Aim podcast. Excited, as always, to get this show out. And as always, I'm Brandon Hammonds, and excited to have my buddy on, Paul Curmi. Paul's a Michigander, and just one of the guys in the industry I always look forward to seeing, and a Michigander that actually gets out there and gets it done all over the country. So, Paul, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Brandon? How's it going?
Oh, it's going, man. Just another day at work and podcasting in my fancy studio, also known as the maintenance closet.
Yeah, I've heard plenty of podcasts from the closet there. Yeah.
So funny. But what are you up to today?
Just got done working my main job at Ford Motor Company. So just to brave the snow driving home and stopped to give you a call. So
yeah, thanks. I heard the roads really suck, actually.
I mean, it's pretty crazy because Tuesday I was riding my motorcycle, and today there's about 3 inches of snow on the ground. So good old Michigan weather. So
Exactly.
Yep.
Actually, it's really bad here. I know I'm a little bit west of you yet and south of you, but Coldwater is getting hammered kind of right now, and the roads are really icy.
Yeah, it started getting worse once I got past Ann Arbor. So, but I'm almost home, so it's not too bad.
So, Paul, I know we've known each other for a while, and I sort of know what you do in the industry, but let people kind of know what you do and what you're associated with, and just give us a background on Paul.
Yeah, so Paul Curmi, I'm 40 years old. My primary job, I guess, is I'm a third-generation Ford UAW auto worker, but my passion is hunting and fishing, and I've been working in the industry for a couple years now. I work for Hudalla Associates, which is a rep group, and we cover a lot of the bigger, like Bear and Trophy Ridge and a lot of the different companies. And then I'm also a team leader for Tactacam for Michigan and Ohio. I work at Shoepex Archery as an archery tech, and I'm a U.S. Coast Guard charter captain. So I've got a lot.
Long list right there, Paul.
Yep. So been hunting and fishing, gosh, probably since I could probably walk. So I love it. It's my passion. I can't get enough of it. It's what I live for. I mean, I go to work so I can hunt and fish, basically.
Yeah. And, I hear that. Paul, where did you grow up exactly?
So I was born in Michigan, and I lived in Michigan probably until I was about 13 or 14. My parents got divorced, and my mom went to South Carolina, to Myrtle Beach, and I went with her there. And I lived down there. I pretty much finished my whole high school career down there, came back to Michigan when I was 18, my senior year, finished 3 months at Dexter High, and started Ford Motor Company in April of '96. So I've been back in Michigan for almost 22 years now. So it's I can say, Michigan is my home.
Yeah, that's very cool. I know, or we both kind of know what Michigan has to offer, Paul, but what did you basically get to do down in Myrtle? Anything outdoorsy, hunting at all, fishing?
Honestly, I was in my teens, and it was all about cars and girls. When I lived down there, I didn't hunt or fish.
That's a good spot for that.
Yeah, I didn't hunt or fish at all. I think we fished in some small ponds around there, and that was about it. I mean, I basically went to school, worked, and messed with my car, and we basically chased girls the whole time. So it was the teenage years. And as soon as I got back to Michigan, everything changed. There wasn't as much stuff to do. It's different here, you know. So as soon as I got back to Michigan, the first thing I did was buy a bow and get right back into the outdoors. I think it was within a year I had a boat and a bow and a snowmobile and a quad, you know, as soon as I got back to Michigan. So it was right back into the outdoors when I was 18 years old. So
yeah, that's super cool, and that's like total Michigander right there to the core.
Yeah.
When you get the snowmobile, you know, like that completes it right there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nonstop all year. I fish as soon as I ice fish a little bit, but I start, you know, fishing as soon as the ice out here in a couple of weeks, and fish all spring, and then try to squeeze in some turkey hunting in there, and then fall it's right back to deer and hunt all the way until the end of the season and start it all over again. It's just a repetitive cycle every year.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the nice thing. It never kind of stops. It just transitions season to season,
exactly.
so to speak, you know?
Yep.
But
yep.
You know, one thing I thought was really cool, that pretty much, Paul, me and you have known each other before we even met, but one of the things that in which, you know, it's kind of funny being from Michigan because we have so many hardcore guys here that just eat, sleep, and breathe Michigan. But, like, our connection was like, man, you're legit and I'm legit because, you know, you find respect for guys that do stuff out of the state and just get a wealth of knowledge, you know, going everywhere, experience new things, new hunting seasons. And, you know, you were always one of those guys to me even before I met you. So that basically was one of the reasons, like, for probably 3 or 4 years now, I've wanted to have you on the show, and I'm finally happy it's happened.
Yeah, I've been a long-time listener, and, yeah, definitely the same. I mean, I can't stay in one place. I have to see it. There's so much out there. There's so many awesome states and so many hunting and fishing adventures. I mean, it's like I would get bored hunting the same. Don't get me wrong. I still love, you know, hunting at my house and all that stuff and the convenience. But I try to change things up every couple of years. I've hunted Ohio public land for I started in about 2000, and then I got really big into tournament fishing, and I kind of put that on the back burner and started fishing a lot, traveling the country fishing, and then I think it was like 2007 I got back into going down there and deer hunting a lot, and started going back down there, and I've hunted Missouri and Idaho, and this year will be Kansas and Iowa. Hopefully now with I'll have 4 points this year for Iowa, so that's been a dream of mine to hunt South Iowa. But yeah, it's I don't like to just keep it in one spot, man. I like to change things up. I've got a long bucket list of hunts that I want to do. And last year I started off with checking off one of the bucket lists. It was Kentucky velvet buck. So
yeah, I remember, like, we had actually talked about it before you went down for the trip, and just super excited for you because that's one of the things I think if you're a whitetail hunter in Kentucky, it's just one of those small niche places for when. And let me back up. I said legit. I don't mean like I'm a legit hunter. I just mean that, like, I legitly go out of state and I do things, and you know, there's these small little kind of pedestal type of hunts that we look for, and Paul was right on with the fact that he's like, man, I'm going in Kentucky, early season velvet, and it's just so unique, and it's just one of those things I think you got an experience, and you got to do that this past year.
Yeah, I mean, it actually came up. It wasn't really planned. The original plan was Kansas public land hunt with a couple of the guys I work with in the industry, my boss and another rep. And we put in for the draw in the spring, and July, I got a check in the mail back from Kansas saying that we didn't draw, which was kind of heartbreaking because Kansas is on the bucket list of hunts too. So I actually got an opportunity. There was an outfitter that works with Tactacam, and they got some new property in Kentucky, and they contacted us and had some spots open. And I literally just got the check back from the state of Kansas, and I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it now. And I just rolled that right into the Kentucky hunt. And I think me and you talked about it. It was I was really nervous because I've never hunted with an outfitter before.
Yeah, that's right. We talked exactly about that.
Yeah, all my hunts in Ohio have been primarily on public land. All my hunts in Michigan are mostly on high-pressure, lease land or friends' land or my personal 15 acres at the house. So I was really nervous. I've never sat in somebody's stand that they've hung for me and all that stuff. So I ended up going down there with Rack 9 Outfitters with Terry Garrett and Stephanie, and I can't tell you how happy I was. It was nothing like some of the horror stories that you hear. You don't hear all the really good stories of outfitters. You kind of only hear some of the bad stuff. So once I got there, it wasn't anything like I thought it would be. It was like hunting with your buddies. I mean, it was really laid back and it was really awesome. I had a blast that week. The food was great. The property was awesome, and I ended up shooting my buck on the second evening. So,
yeah, to hit on that for a minute, Paul, like it's sort of weird. Like outfitters get a bad rap with, I guess, anything in customer service. It can be one guy out of 1,000 that didn't like his experience, and that's the one we hear of. And on the flip side of that, there's our hunting culture and community of people that somehow think that it's not as credible for some reason, which is really weird. You know what I mean? Like when I was in Alberta, I was lucky enough to kill a deer, and one of the comments right away was, "Is it DIY?" And it's like, well, Alberta, it's illegal to hunt DIY. There is no non-resident. You must hunt with the licensed outfitter. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
But it's just funny that dynamic for these outfitters, they get kind of crapped on from both ends.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's still hunting. I mean, this was a new property. He had I think 2,700 acres in 2 different counties, and when we got there, it was still, you got to get up in the morning and get your butt in the stand, and you've got to do all your preparation, your scent control, and everything I do, beforehand. Like if I'm hunting my own spots, it's still hunting. You still got to, execute the shot and pay attention while you're in the stand. I think you hear more about the bad experiences and stuff. And I checked them out, and it's funny, like you'll check out outfitters and you always have a couple bad reviews. And when I looked at some of the bad reviews and you look at them on Facebook, it was actually anti-hunters that were trolling their Facebook page and leaving negative remarks on it. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt when you look at somebody's if they have a 5-star rating or a 4-star rating or whatever. I mean, I definitely did my homework. I'm looking into them, and everything checked out. And when I got there, it was still hunting. I mean, okay, I didn't have to bring 20 stands like I would if I was hunting public land.
Right.
I actually still brought my own stands and a climber just in case. And the way they did it was, if you don't like where where we got you, if you have any suggestions, and you move,
right.
Just let me know and do what you got to do. And they had things set up. It was amazing. I told the outfitter, I told Terry, I said, I didn't sit in a single stand that I wouldn't have that I would have thought, no, this is not in a good spot, or
right.
This stand's not hung right. I mean, it was just like how I would have done it. So
yep. There's a lot of truth to that, and there's a lot of truth too to like what you said earlier, Paul. Like, you got to get up, you got to do your due diligence, you got to be ready ahead of time for the hunt, both mentally, with your gear, and even physically, and just all that stuff. And sometimes, I mean, I've hunted with guides, outfitters / before, and a lot that gets missed is like, hey, this hunt came up because, like you said, of connections or getting to spend times with my buddies that I wouldn't get to spend time with. But in that situation, like you said, it's still hunting, and there's been several times where I asked a guide, / outfitter, hey, can I move this stand, or can I hang a stand in this area? This is where I'm seeing deer. So, like, it boils down to you're still hunting, just take part in that hunt and be involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, we asked him the first. I said, well, what time do you want us to come out? What time do you want us to come out? And he looked at us. He said, this is your hunt. You can sit all day. You can come out whenever you want. Just text us when you want to come out. I'm sure, like, if somebody wanted to come out at 8 in the morning and only sit for 45 minutes and affect, we were spread out. I mean, he had big property, so it wouldn't really affect anybody else. But I mean, I could see that kind of being a no-no, but, he basically said, it's your hunt. You can do whatever you want. You know what I mean? If it's raining and you don't want to go out in the morning, then you can sleep in. But, he just basically said you're not going to kill them on the couch. So the more time you're in the stand, the better chances you have. So
yeah,
it was a great experience. I've made friends for a lifetime. I mean, it wasn't anything like, you're a number. I mean, they sat and ate dinner with us every night, and we sat on the couch and, talked hunting and watched TV and just like I would at any other deer camp with friends that I hunt with all the time. So,
right.
And when you add dollar per dollar of going out of state and doing it yourself, I sat down and crunched the numbers, and it was, for me to hunt public land in Kentucky my first time and get a hotel and feed myself and do all the stuff, it was pretty close to about the same, and
right.
That's how I looked at it. It would have cost me pretty close to the same amount of money to do it myself. So.
And actually probably right at the same price when you factor in, if you did, I don't know if you crunched this in the numbers, Paul, but if you did 1 or 2 weekend trips down to check cameras to scout.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
So all that takes into play, you know what I mean? But you were, which I think is really cool, you actually are, what I think is one of the few guys that actually got to kill a deer in velvet, because many of us, especially here in the Midwest, our seasons don't open usually till October 1st, but you were down there early, got to have an amazing hunt. And one cool thing that I wanted to talk about too was, and you mentioned that you were the team leader for Tactacam for Michigan, but just how you got to use that device. And I had this conversation with you like 3 weeks ago about me switching. Like, man, it kind of makes sense. Like, I might get rid of my stabilizer, start using one of these, because I told you about my experience in Alberta. Had a guy over my shoulder, camera, films the whole mule deer hunt, which would have been like some of the coolest footage, I would say, ever. And the dude forgot to hit record. So, it happens. It's real life. But if I would have used that Tactacam and taken the effort to just, along with the cameraman, hit that, little button and recorded it myself, I would have something to go along with it. But I know you use it, and I kind of want to talk to you about just how, you hunt with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been using one for a couple of years now. I actually I wasn't affiliated with them at all. I actually bought one because I really didn't film at all. I think like 10 years ago, I bought a camera arm. I had a girlfriend that wanted to hunt, and I bought a camera and a camera arm, and I think I sat with her a couple times. She didn't really get into it, so the camera arm's still sitting in a tote somewhere. But we had a turkey contest with one of the companies I work with, the Thunder Chicken Award, and you received an extra point for getting it on film. So they had this Tactacam. I think it was the 2.0 back then, at the shop I work at, and so I bought it and attached it to my bow, and actually I did to my bow the first year, and I got my first turkey on camera, and ended up winning because I had that extra point. But and then I got affiliated with them just from that camera, and the owners are so involved in pretty much everything in the company. I mean, if you see anything on social media or any of the forums, if anybody has a problem with Tactacam, those guys, Jeff and Ben, they're right on it. And I thought that was so awesome that you don't find most, business owners that involved, and they were such a great company. And I ended up upgrading to a 3.0, and then I got involved with them and got on the team and became the team leader for Michigan, Ohio. So I ended up going with the 4.0. So when I got down there, the funny part was this season, I killed 4 bucks with my bow, and it started out a little shaky with filming. That first buck in Kentucky, the doe came in, and I stood up, and I had my bow hanging on the other side of the tree. And basically the Tactacam is so easy to use. It's basically just you reach down and hit one button, and it vibrates twice, and you feel it right through the bow, and it's recording. That's it. There's no turn it on, then you got to hit record. Well, my Kentucky buck, the first deer, I grabbed the bow, I put my hand on the stabilizer mount where the Tactacam was to turn it on, and the doe, she sensed something. She loaded up like she was going to spring. She started to spook, and I just instinctively turned, pulled back as fast as I could, drew, anchored, put the pin on the deer, and shot the buck. And as soon as he ran away, I thought, oh, my God, I didn't hit the button. So my very first kill for this year, being the team leader for Tactacam, I did the cardinal mistake of not pushing the one button that you have to push.
Were you the same guy that was with me in Alberta, Paul?
Yeah, I might have been. I mean, it's funny now. I killed 4 bucks this year with it, and each one I got better and better. And now it's second nature. I mean, when I pick up that bow, the very first thing I do, and I actually run 2 cameras on my bow now. I'm running the 4.0 on the stabilizer, and then I'm running the 4.0 wide, which is like a selfie cam, up on the riser. And literally any time I pick up my bow, I will never make that mistake twice. Anytime I pick up that bow, it's the button's getting pushed and it's on. So, but it was still a cool hunt. I still got my velvet buck. It wasn't a giant. It was really cool. Very unique rack. It had like
very
a
awesome
time.
rack. Yeah,
it was a pretty cool rack. It didn't score great. It was like 130, but I could care less about that. I mean, it was full velvet, nothing screwed up. He's actually done. He's at the taxidermist now, down in Kentucky. I need to find some time to get down there and bring him home. So, it was an awesome hunt. I mean, I totally enjoyed it. The bucket list. It's going to be hard not deer hunting in September now. After that, it was cool because once October rolled around, that opening day, I mean, you still got that excitement, but it just seemed like you didn't have that pressure like you do, to especially for us being in the industry, you kind of always have that pressure to kind of like, to get a nice buck on the ground. But once I got that velvet buck done, it was like kind of like, little weight lifted off the shoulders kind of thing. So
yeah, it probably felt good right off the get-go, being early September.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was cool. I mean, it was 88 degrees the night I shot my buck, so that was totally different. I don't think I've shot a deer that warm. Luckily, there was really not much tracking involved. He went about 60 yards and tipped over. I was hunting in this little sawtooth oak patch, And I actually didn't see him fall over, but he just fell. He ran as soon as he ran out of that sawtooth patch. He just tipped over, and when we come to go look for him, we almost ran him over with the truck. So he was laying right there in the field. So we had him tagged and cut up, and he was in my cooler within hours. So it was pretty cool experience.
That is cool. Now, I know you had a really awesome season. So from Kentucky, then what happened? Where'd you go?
So, from Kentucky, then I had a couple week break. Our season, doesn't start till October 1st. And started hunting here in Michigan. And I had a couple nice bucks on camera, but it was as soon as I was getting some pictures like in September and August of a couple nice bucks. And as soon as the season come around, it went from daylight pictures to nighttime pictures with absolutely no pressure on that little piece of 70 acres that I was hunting. But these deer, they're highly pressured here, and I'm pretty sure they have their internal calendar where they know it's deer season. But I was really I was paying a lot of attention to the wind, and I had a buck that was showing up every time it was a northwest wind. So a little trick I learned with trail cameras is if you get a picture of a buck on camera in daylight hours, is like when I try to really record it. I go back and I go on, I think it's Weather Underground, and I look at the history for that day and that time, and I write down what the wind direction was. And I would put money on if you got a buck coming in and you get them once a week or once every 2 weeks or 3 times in 1 week, you look at the wind direction and it's always going to be the same. So I kind of kept on that. It didn't work out for me early season. I actually kind of struggled. I was really wanting to get after the debacle in Kentucky, I was really wanting to get a good quality kill on film, a buck or a doe. And it just seemed like every time a deer would come in, it would be right at dark or right, it would just not good camera shooting footage. So rolled into Halloween night. I had to work. Halloween, I jumped in my car and got home as fast as I could. And as soon as I got home, I threw on my scentlock suit, and I had hung a stand in a tree in my backyard in September, not September, but on Saturday that day, or that week. And I jumped in that stand, and it was literally in my backyard, probably 60, 70 yards from my house. So I could get home, even though it was late from work, throw on my hunting gear and slip into that stand. I wasn't in that stand 10 minutes, and I had 3 does come in, and they were probably 10 yards from me on this trail that I mow for my little gun range. And I had actually started to draw back, and I was going to film the one doe. I had the cameras rolling, and I thought, you know what, it's Halloween. I mean, they're chasing, they're searching. The bucks are out on their feet, and I'm like, I can't. It just went against everything that that I believe in. I didn't want to shoot a doe. I shoot a lot of does, but I didn't want to shoot a doe during the rut. So I let those 3 does walk, and it was probably about 15, 20 minutes later. It was getting dark. I just looked at my watch, and I had, I think, 11 minutes left of legal shooting light. And I looked out in the back of the field, and there was a big silhouette. And I threw up my binoculars, and there was a buck, and he was outside of his ears, and he was a shooter. So I put my binoculars down, and I got up, and he put his nose down right where those does came through, and he just started grunting and came right to the bottom of my tree, 6 yards. And I had both cameras rolling, but it was 6 minutes till the end of shooting light. I put an arrow. I was 24 feet up in a tree, 6 yards away, so I put it right between his shoulder blade and his spine, and he took off running, and I didn't see where I hit, and he took off running, and I waited, and I got down, and it was weird because I shoot lighted nocks, and I couldn't find my arrow laying on the ground. And I'm thinking, I almost always get pass-throughs. I'm a 31-inch draw and 72 pounds, so I have a lot of kinetic energy.
Big power stroke.
Yeah, big power stroke. I mean, my bears almost had pass-throughs on every single deer with my bear arena, and I couldn't find my arrow. So then I started second-guessing myself, and I went back to the house. I didn't look for anything, and I took the SD card out, and I started reviewing the footage, and it was so dark I could see the arrow. I slowed it down, and I could see the arrow, and I could see it go straight down, but I couldn't see the deer in the footage. That's the bad part about filming with any camera. I don't think, most cameras, even the really, really expensive cameras, you lose about 10 minutes probably. I mean, you've probably done a lot of filming.
Yeah, always lose 10 minutes.
And this was, when I looked at the time on the camera, it was 6 minutes. I had 6 minutes left of shooting light. But the key part was there's a lot of branches in that stand, and at first I thought, did I hit a limb and deflect, and the arrow ended up in the field or something like that? So I started second-guessing myself, and after I looked at the footage, I said, no way, I hit that deer. You could hear it. I mean, the audio is so good on those Tactacams. You could hear the bow go off, you could hear the arrow hit the deer, and you could hear it run off. So you know what? I give it like 45 minutes, an hour, and I waited, and I just walked back there, and I ended up drilling the deer. I just hit it at an angle to where I didn't get a pass-through. So the arrow stayed in the deer, and it was in its opposite side, so when he ran away, I never saw the lighted knock. But I got the audio, I got part of the footage, so that kind of progressed. I went from not filming anything to getting a pretty decent one, and then that was Halloween, so I ended up, I was planning on my Ohio trip, and I think about 5 or 6 days before I left my Ohio trip, some things came up where I was supposed to hunt, and I basically I think it was 5 days before I was supposed to leave, I didn't have a place to hunt. So that kind of threw a wrench in everything, and I was a little stressed out about that, but I worked things out, and I ended up driving down to Ohio. When I drove down there, when I was in my truck driving down there, I didn't know where I was going to hunt. There's thousands of acres of public land that I know about from 10 years prior. I took my fat tire bike down there. I took my four-wheeler down there, and I took 18 tree stands, just so I was ready for anything. Anything that popped up, I was going to be ready for. So that was a little bit of stress, but it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about the whole, kind of sort of the letdown of losing where you had in Ohio, and then trying to figure out what you were going to do this past year down there. Yeah, and I lost my primary spot. Was public land for years, and the paper company decided that they would, instead of giving it to the state for public use, they would make more money leasing it out. So my public land turned into a lease 2 years ago, and then I had another piece of private that I was supposed to hunt, and that kind of fell through. But the nice part about southern Ohio is I've been going down there so long that I've got some of my closest friends live down there. So on the way down, I called my buddy that I was going to stay with, and I told him the situation, and he said, make some phone calls. And that's the part about hunting is everybody, it's not always about the kill, and it's not always about the hunt. It's about the friendships you make. I've been going down there for almost 18, 19 years now, and I could say the guys down there that I hunt with are some of my best friends, in my life. So my buddy Jake pulled through, and then when I got down there,
as soon as I got down there, he looked at me and said, well, I got you 160 acres to hunt. And we drove over and got the permission slip for the property and went over there and scouted it. It wasn't what we thought it would be. It was 160 acres. It was only supposed to have 2 people hunting it, and it ended up turning out that we found 8 tree stands and 8 bait piles on that 160
Holy
acres.
crap.
So there was five people hunting it, but the way they were hunting it wasn't what I would do for that time of the year. They were hunting the outer edges with very large bait piles and tree stands 20 yards off the bait pile. And knowing what I've learned over those years of hunting down there, those bucks are not going to go to bait. They're going to be chasing does. And basically the way I hunt down there is I sit all day and I get in between the bedding areas and just wait for bucks to cruise. And I hunted the next morning down there in just a stand that my friend had put up a couple years before, just kind of observation. And I seen 5 different bucks going up one ridge. And so I went home, I ran to his house, I took a shower and grabbed my portable and went back out there, and that was when there was like 3 trucks there. And that's when I discovered there was 5 other people hunting it. And went
That's
out.
sort of a sinking feeling, though, right?
Yeah, as soon as you pull up to the property and there's only supposed to be a father and a son hunting it, there's 3 trucks there with 3 trailers, ATV trailers. And I called my buddy and I said, wow, there's only 2 people hunting here. They figured out how to drive 3 vehicles, you know.
Right.
And he just basically told me, like, well, you got a permission slip too. You got every right to hunt it, you know. So I got my stand on my back and started walking. And I walked past, I think, one guy a couple hundred yards, and I headed up that ridge where I watched those deer go up. And I got to the highest point of the property, and I realized why they were up there. It was a big flat, and it was all honeysuckle. And I found a tree, and I hung a stand, and I hunted that night, and I seen a pretty nice young buck and let him pass. And the next morning, it was supposed to rain all day, and the guys that were hunting the property, I talked to them at the truck, and I asked them if they were hunting tomorrow, and they said, no, it's supposed to rain. And I said, well, when do you normally hunt? They asked me when I normally hunt. I said, well, when I hunt from sun up to sundown. And they just kind of gave me a look. Well, the next morning I went out there. I was the only one because it was raining, and it poured rain. I mean, the whole walk to the stand, it was pouring rain. Got in the stand, it was pouring rain. It poured till probably about 11:30, and then it kind of tapered down. And at 12:55, the 8-point heavy chocolate rack buck that I shot showed up. He started coming up the hill, and I turned the Tactacam on, and I turned the Tactacam wide on, the selfie one, and I shot him at 29 yards, and he bolted off and went around the side of the hill. I didn't see him fall, and I sat back down, and the cool part about the Tactacam 4.0 is the Wi-Fi. So as soon as you as soon as you film something, you can turn the Wi-Fi on. It creates its own Wi-Fi, so you don't even need a cell phone signal. And I turned my phone on, connected to Wi-Fi, and pulled up the video, watched the video, and it was a 10 ring. I smoked that thing right behind the shoulder, and then I watched the video of the selfie of me drawing it and stuff. So I had a little fun with that. I sent a couple of my friends the video of the shot, and then I sent I posted on Facebook. I don't know if you commented. I think you did. I posted the selfie of it, just the me drawing the bow back, anchoring, and then pulling the trigger, and you could hear the arrow hit the deer, and the deer run off. And I just kind of let that hang a little bit, you know, and it got some excitement on Facebook going on, and it was pretty cool to do that. And then a couple hours later, I posted pictures and stuff. But that was the 3rd buck, and that was on November 6th. So it didn't take long to get the filming part, to progress into the filming part a little bit better. But then I came home think I stayed in Ohio for 2 or 3 days. I went and visited friends and tried to not. I think when I left for Ohio, I was stressed before I left, but when I started to leave, I just kind of told myself, you know what, I'm just going to have fun and do what I do every year and just hunt, but not put as much pressure on myself. And I stopped at a friend's house and had dinner with him on the way down to Ohio, and then when I got down there, I didn't even hunt for a day. I went and visited everybody first and just took it easy. So when I got home, I kind of did the same thing. I think I didn't hunt until the 9th was my first day back in the stand, November 9th, back at home. And when I was in Ohio after I killed that buck, there was a good friend of mine, Dave Rosenbaum, and I was talking with him, and I said, you know what, when I get home, I've never really got to hunt Michigan during the rut because I'm always out of state. I'm always, and mostly
Gone.
In Ohio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, during the rut.
And
most of the time we come back and it's like, you might squeeze in like November 14th or something like that, or the 13th or whatever, but I've never got to hunt, like the 8th to the 15th in Michigan because I'm always in Ohio. And I told my friend, I said, when I get back to Michigan, I said, I'm going to go into one of my leases in a spot that I never hunt. It's kind of like the little sanctuary. And I would only hunt that spot during the rut, but I never really got a chance. So I told him I'm going to get really aggressive. I'm going to go in there because I know there's 2 different bucks that are going in and out of there. I got pictures of them. And I'm just going to get in there, and I'm going to stay in there all day. And I've been doing a couple different things with scent control this year. I've always used ozone in the field, and I started using ozone outside the field in my truck. I got a chance to use some of the new ScentLock Oz stuff I stole from my boss. Yeah, I took some of the samples before I left for Ohio, and I'm running an ozone generator in my truck, and I'm running the bags. And before, what I would always do is I would always change outside my truck.
Right.
I would never have my stuff in my truck. I had 2 vehicles most of the year, so my truck would only be used for hunting, but I would still keep everything in totes and change on a mat, outside the truck. So this year what I did is I ran the Oz unit inside the truck in the cigarette lighter, and I would run it all the time. While I wasn't in the truck, I would let it cycle for 30 minutes. And some of the stuff I would do, I have a clothes rack in the back of my truck. So what I would do is when I would get out of the field, the big stuff that I couldn't put in the bag, like my backpack, my harness,
right.
A lot, and my bow, I would put it in the case, and I would set it in the back seat, and I would run that ozone generator in my truck with the door shut while I wasn't in it, while I parked my truck. And what a lot of people don't think about is, we do all the stuff to our boots and our and our jackets and our clothing and our long johns and all that stuff, but we don't think about our backpack. There's a really good hunter named John Eberhart. He's probably one of the best hunters that I know, and he stresses that. Guys will go and use ScentLock, and they'll get up in a tree, and they'll do all this, they'll wear the face mask, and they'll spray down their boots and all that, but they don't do anything to their backpack. And their backpack, literally, you stick your hands in your backpack all day, when you're pulling stuff in and out, and you're putting scent in that. So I would take my backpack, put it in the back seat, open everything up, and run the ozone unit in the truck. So this year, I wore my boots in my truck. I wear my hunting clothes in my truck, because when I get in my truck, I know that ozone unit was running before I got in there, and everything in the truck is clean. So I don't worry about sitting in my seat and contaminating my clothes. I'll still spray down my boots and anything I walk in with, anything that touches, like from my knees about down is what I usually spray. But it totally changed the way I hunt this year using ozone. It just made things simpler. It cut down the time to get dressed.
All that.
It was just, I could be sweat coming out of the woods, take my clothes off, put it in that bag, hang up my clothes hang up the big stuff that you couldn't put in a bag or that you wouldn't get all clean and just run it in the truck and everything was clean. So that I think was a big key in my success this year was using those scent lock or the Oz units, and any scent lock or any ozone unit does pretty much the same thing. I mean, they're all creating ozone. So if you're not using ozone in the field or before the field in preparation, you're really missing out. I mean, you
really
save a lot
missing
of
out.
money.
It's so easy. Like you said, you can plug in devices, or you can hit these little boxes, and if the battery's charged, it turns them on, and that's all you have to do. And obviously, like Paul made a good point, like you want something that's basically sealed, like inside the cab of your truck, and that gives you enough airflow to let that ozone actually get around stuff and work and dig deep into some of those fibers. But man, that's all you have to do, literally. Like, literally, that's all you have to do. It's awesome. But it has literally changed, kind of like you, Paul. Like, I was freezing, I mean, just recently, like, within the past year, 2 seasons ago, technically, freezing at the truck in my skivvies trying to put on clean clothes. Just ridiculous.
I don't know how many different floor mats and rugs I've bought for my truck I've made hangers in the back of my truck. It had lights in the back of my truck to get dressed in the morning.
So you can see.
And you still forget stuff because it's hanging on the back of the tailgate or something. And now I get dressed in my garage or my barn or wherever I'm hunting, pull the stuff out of the bags or the totes that are set free, and I put them on, and I jump in the truck that's set free, and I drive there.
Going.
And I spray my boots down real quick. And I go, and the crazy thing is I probably used 1 bottle of spray this year, and I hunt a lot. I mean, during the rut, I mean, you've seen, I literally take all my vacation time, in 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I'll hunt 20 days in a row, every day, all day, and I used to use 5-6 bottles of spray, in a month. Now I'm using like 1 big bottle of spray a season. So, it cuts down on some of those costs there. The initial cost of the units will pay for themselves in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So obviously that, like, if you ask me, it took a part in your success on that Michigan deer during the rut, and I can contribute to the same kind of success. Like in Alberta, a very remote camp, I didn't have a washer or dryer per se, and I literally used my Enforcer Ozone, turned it on every day, closed my bow case, which I actually used a Lakewood, which is like rectangle, so it actually had a little more opportunity for like the airflow. And I would close it every day, run a 30-minute power wash, dry wash, and got to hunt in those clothes every single day. So, man, it's just awesome, and you guys are missing out if you're not using some, like Paul said, some sort of ozone. But it's great stuff.
Yeah, definitely helps. I mean, it put. When I hung, I put a climber up for that 4th buck in Michigan. I went in there on November 9th, and in the morning I went super early, and I hung a stand right in the middle of what I would have thought was their core area. It's just the thick stuff. I never go in. It's a lot of down trees and a little bit wet and swampy, and I hung it right in the middle of that, and I didn't even look at the wind. I knew the wind was going to be changing daily, and I just figured if I stay, because during the rut, I mean, it's hard to determine where a buck's going to come from because they're chasing, they're searching, they're coming from every direction, and I just knew that if I got in there and I got in the middle of it, that if I paid attention to my scent control and I ran all my ozone units and kept everything clean and wore the scent lock suit and the face mask and everything that I do normally, that it would cut down a lot on I don't think you can 100% fool every single deer, but it does help a lot. It gives you that extra time, especially when you're hunting in kind of urban areas. Where I was hunting, there's a lot of houses on that road that butt up to that property. There's I have 72 acres there, but there's a road that has 6 houses on it, and they all have 10 acres apiece, and they all butt up to that property. So those deer are in those people's backyards, and if they smell 10% of me, they might think, oh, that's the guy or that's the neighbor that's, walked out of his barn, an hour ago, kind of.
Yeah,
that's the way I look
he's
at it. 300
yards away still.
Yeah, he might think that I'm 300 yards away, but I'm actually 20 yards away. So,
right.
I started hunting that 4th buck on the 9th, and I hunted that evening, and I saw a buck chasing in the field, and then I hunted that whole day from morning till dark on the 9th. And I had a buck come through at noon, came to to the north of me. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't paying attention, and he kind of snuck up behind me, and all of a sudden I looked over, and he was 50, 60 yards away. I don't think I would have been able to get a shot, but by the time I got up and got ready, he was like 70, 80 yards. I tried to grunt him, I tried to rattle, I did all that, and he didn't care. So I kept on walking, and then I hunted the 10th, and it was 17 degrees that morning. I remember because I posted a post with my Celestron hand warmers, how cold it was that morning and how I use those to sit all day. And I remember I posted that, and I sat all day. I had my little ritual. I drank like a half a big thermos of hot tea to keep warm, and about it was 2:55. I heard a twig break behind me. I was already standing up. I just looked over to my left shoulder, and I seen antlers coming in, and it was the Big 10 that I had pictures of. And I turned on the cameras, and I had to turn all the way around in the tree, and I'm using a climber. And that morning was so cold, I couldn't get the climber leveled right. So the bottom platform was kind of, how you kind of want it level. The bottom platform was a little sloped down, and
right.
I was a little awkward. I had to turn all the way around in the tree, and the buck came in. He stopped. I came to full draw, and that buck stopped about 50 yards, and he stood there. And I think on the video, when I go back and look at it, it was close to a minute that he stood there. It felt, I don't know. I mean, when you're at full draw, it felt like he was standing there for an hour.
It always does. It's like eternity.
He started to come quartering to me, and he got to about 40 yards. And the way I was positioned in the tree, if I would have let him keep on going, I would have had to come from full draw and then go all the way around the tree again and try to get a shot on the other side without him seeing me. So I thought, you know what, this is my only opportunity. He's at 40 yards. I had my one pin react already set at about 35, 40. So I was at full draw, and he stopped for a second, and I let him have it. And when I released, as soon as I released, my arm was up against a tree, and I just knew I pulled the shot. As soon as that bow went off, I knew I pulled the shot, and I knew I hit him. I don't know how good I hit him. I knew I hit him back I knew I hit him back. That was the only thing I could tell. He took off running. I heard the crack of the arrow hitting him, and he took off running, and he did a little loop, and then I couldn't see him anymore. So I immediately, turned the Wi-Fi on, pulled up the video, and watched it. And it was so bright out that day, and the lighted knock I was using wasn't as bright as what I thought it would be. And I couldn't exactly see where I shot. I could tell I hit him back, but I still couldn't see where I shot. So the nice thing was I downloaded that off of the Tactacam right to my cell phone while I was still sitting in the tree. And I emailed that. I texted a good friend of mine, Gabe, from Michigan Outdoors, and I know he's got some crazy awesome editing software. So I texted him. He was still in the tree. He was actually hunting himself. I texted him. I said, I just shot a giant, buck for Michigan. I think I hit him back. Can I send you this footage? Can you throw it on your editing software, pull it up, and zoom in and tell me where I hit it? So he said, yep, I can do that. I'll do that when I get down. So I sent that to him. I waited probably about 45 minutes. I snuck down out of the stand, got down to the ground, and where my truck was parked was kind of the direction that buck ran, so I did a big loop. I went to the other side of the property, came around, and got in my truck and left. And I went and got dinner, and I called a couple close friends of mine. I sent that video to a couple other friends, and a couple of my buddies wanted to go look for it after like 3 or 4 hours, and I was like, I'm going to wait till I get that video back from Gabe. And when Gabe got down, he went right home, and he pulled it up, and he sent me back that video edited, and he freeze-framed it and showed right where the arrow went in. And I mean, he circled it and stopped the video, sent it to me, I watched it, and then you watch it in slow-mo, and then right where the arrow hits, he freeze-framed it right there, and you could see the arrow hit, and I hit him back. I hit him pretty far back. It was like I might have nicked liver. I got guts. I got his hindquarters. So I knew I hit him back, and I knew it was cold. It was going to be 12 degrees that night, and I'm pretty confident in my equipment. And even though it was a back shot, a far back shot, I knew that if that buck wasn't pushed, there was really not much places for him to go in that area. If he wasn't pushed, he would probably bed down right in that wet area, in that tall grass. If he was pushed, he would totally leave that whole area. I mean, it was just nothing but fields, and he would have to go somewhere else, and he would have to go a ways. So I didn't want to push him. I waited till the next morning, and I started tracking him right at sunup. And that buck only went 175 yards, and he died in his first bed. And that footage was key for me recovering that buck, because I wanted to go look for that buck that night. I had so many people. I don't know if you remember, I posted on Facebook that I shot one, and I was waiting till morning, and I had so many people tell me that the coyotes were going to get them. And
I remember exactly. Yeah, and it kills you to wait. It really does. It's hard.
It was everything wanted me. Like, the coyotes are going to push them. The coyotes are going to get them. The coyotes are going to get them. And I kept on telling myself, you know what? I watched the footage. It was a bad shot. I need to let him lay. And I let him lay, and he, like I said, he died in his very first bed. He didn't get up once. He went right to that bed, and he died in a bed. If he would have went another 40 yards to the west, he would have been on a piece of property that I do have absolutely no permission to go on. I wouldn't have been able to recover that deer, and I would have lost the biggest Michigan buck I've ever shot. So
that's huge. And I think that's such a.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I won't shoot anything now without having the Tactacam rolling. I think it's the ethics of just being able to go back and see where you hit, and giving yourself the confidence to be like, you know what, I killed him, I got him good, no doubt I'm going to get down and recover that deer. And then when you do second guess yourself and you think you made a bad shot, you can go back and look at it. So you're right on.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And I think it's one of those things, once you have it, you'll probably be like, man, I wish I always had this piece of gear. And, Paul, like, I don't do a ton of gear stuff. I think it's that's something that's pretty diluted in our industry. And I definitely like to talk about gear that is actually very functional and items we use day to day, and that really make a difference. Because I actually had called you and we had this conversation out, and I was like, man, I really want to know the ins and outs. Is it legit or not? And I'm at the point now where I'm definitely like, I'm going to have a Tactacam, just because I've had a situation like that where I was like, man, I don't know really where I hit this deer, and I knew in my gut, like you said, I need to wait. Someone else talked me into going, and long story short, we bumped that deer 500 yards and ended up on a piece of property I could not get permission on, and lost a great buck. And man, that Tactacam takes that away and really would give you the answer to, like, hey, just hold off, go in the morning, give that deer all the rest it needs, and you're good to go. And like you said, you found it in the first bed, which is so important.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's so user friendly. I mean, the people that designed it, it's literally, when they say the slogan, made by hunters for hunters, designed by hunters for hunters, it's truly that. I mean, the camera itself with the battery and the SD card weighs 3.4 ounces. You can, with the bow kit that comes with a stabilizer, their own stabilizer, it's 6.4 ounces. So it's not like you're adding this, big camera onto your bow or anything crazy. I run a 3-inch static Trophy Ridge stabilizer, and then I add the stabilizer mount to that. I've got, I know people that run, if they don't want to switch out their stabilizer, if they're running like a bee stinger or some kind of stabilizer like that, they take the gun mount for the Tactacam, and they just mount it right on top of their bee stinger or their stabilizer, and they mount the Tactacam on that. You can mount the Tactacam on the riser. You can mount your Tactacam on your hat. You can put it, they have a head mount. So you can actually put the Tactacam on the head mount, and then the nice part about the Wi-Fi is you can pull up the image that what you're looking at on your phone while you're angling it. So you can check out what it's actually going to film, what it looks like. Another really, really cool feature that a lot of people miss when they have a Tactacam is it's an actual camera too. It'll take still photos. So a lot of times when I hunt a lot alone, and you shoot a deer and you get into this situation where, we've got to take good pictures. We've got to take pictures of our harvest. So I'm always calling a buddy and having him drive out to my house. I live in the middle of nowhere, and they gotta, give them, your camera, and they've gotta, lay on the ground and take tons of pictures.
Right.
Well, with the Tactacam, you take that Tactacam, you set it out on a stump, and you point it back at the deer and yourself, and then you pull up the Wi-Fi app, and you look on your screen of your phone, and you can line up the shots. It's not like before you take your camera and set it on a stump, turn on a timer, run back to the deer, grab the horns, and hope that everything's in frame and you don't cut half your head off. But with the Tactacam, you can just look on the screen, see that everything's lined up. And what I like to do is there's a time-lapse mode. So it'll take a picture like every 5 seconds. So I just hit time-lapse and let it start taking photos, and I just start taking photos. Or you can set it up and you could do a video. You can talk about it and set it up with the video, and that'll work up to 30 feet away with the 4.0. And then in the future, they're coming out with the new model, the 5.0, probably the end of the summer, early fall, and that's going to have a remote that can control up to 5 different cameras 30 yards away. So you can have that camera out by your decoy. You can, for turkey hunting or on the trail or up in a tree and point it at you, or different angles, and you can hit that button. The nice part about the Tactacam is you hit that button one time, it's going to vibrate twice, and it's going to start recording. There's no guessing. There's no you got to power it up and then hit record. So it's very simple, designed by hunters for hunters, and it's super simple to use.
No, it's an awesome piece of gear, and I'm excited to have one for this upcoming hunting season. And like I said earlier, I think it's one of those pieces, once you have it, you'll be like, man, I wish I had this all along, you know?
And it's really cool. I mean, I go back and watch that stuff, or, you know, you get your buddy, oh, man, I heard you got a nice buck. You whip your phone out, yeah, here's the video of it. You know what I mean? You can go back home, and you can plug the Tactacam right into your TV. You can watch it on TV. I mean, the best part, I mean, the funnest part was this year was actually sitting in a tree and sending, like, that Ohio buck. I sent my buddies the video of me shooting it literally 5 minutes after I shot it, you know. I text them, hey, I just shot one. They're like, no way. And then I sent them the video, and they're like, wow, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool, too.
It was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Paul, man. Go ahead.
Oh, it's not just for hunting, too. I mean, I've used it for snowmobiling. I'm going to use it for fishing. You could use it for anything. Any of the GoPro mounts that you have already will work with the accessory mount for the Tactacam. So you can mount it on quads, four-wheelers, motorcycles. It's not just for hunting. You could use it, you know, 365 days a year. So. Yeah,
it has a lot of functions, which I think are really valuable, and it has enough functions that you can actually get rid of some other gear, you know, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it definitely what sets it apart from the competitors is zoom. Your normal, like your GoPros and your 90% of your action cams, almost all your action cams, they don't have a true zoom, to where Tactacam has a 3x and a 5x zoom. So your 3x zoom is what the human eye sees. So when that deer comes in at 20 yards and you film it, it's going to look like it's at 20 yards, not at 60 yards like the competitors. To where the 5x zoom, you're actually, if that deer is at 40 yards, it's going to pull it in even closer, and you're going to be able to actually see it. I know a lot of guys that, you know, when they turkey hunt, they've used other cameras, and they say, man, that turkey came in at, you know, 20 yards, and when I went back and watched the film, it looked like it was a little tiny black dot, you know, 60 yards away or something. So that's where it distinguishes itself from all other cameras.
Yeah, for sure. That's a huge advantage, and that makes a world of difference, especially in that realm of trying to capture footage, because we know that once you turn on a camera, 20 yards, a deer looks like he's really 40 or 50, and it looks like it's so far away. So even being able to get just a little bit of zoom out of that thing changes the way that looks on film tremendously, and it changes it, you know, way better, you know, for the good of the footage, so to speak.
Yeah, and the 4.0 is 2.7K and 1080p, and then the new 5.0 is going to be 4K, and it's going to have 8 times zoom. So it's going to, and then another cool feature it's going to have that me or you might use, it's going to have a live Facebook feature. So you're going to be able to link it to your phone and hit the button one time, and as soon as you hit the button, it's going to start a live Facebook feed. So if you miss that deer, you're going to miss that deer live. If you mess up on the turkey, it's going to be live. So you could choose different options for that. They're growing big time. They're leaps and bounds every year. They're growing their team program. Like I said, I'm the team leader for Michigan, Ohio, and we just started adding new team members to the team. So if we're looking for, you know, dedicated, passionate, law-abiding hunters that want to be involved in the industry, and they can, you know, apply on Tactacam's website. And there's a lot of areas that we don't have members in, northern part of Michigan, a lot of the UP, and there's some holes in Ohio. So if any of the listeners, you know, wanted to try to join the team, they can throw in an application, and it can get reviewed, and hopefully, you know, at some point they can get added. So.
Yeah, for sure. And Paul, if anybody wants to get a hold of you or check out your social media, where can they find you?
I mean, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, just basically Paul Curmi, Curmi. That's basically it. I'm in the fall. If they want to come up to the shop. I work at Shoepex Archery. I could set up their bow for them or help them get set up with a Tactacam there, or just, point them in the right direction for any kind of hunting gear.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Paul really knows his gear, that is no doubt, and I definitely am looking forward to the new Tactacam coming out later in this year. Like Paul said, I'm definitely going to grab one and excited to use it, and I'll be, I'm sure, on the phone with Paul trying to figure the thing out and getting up to speed on how to use it. But Paul, thanks so much, man, for your time today, and congrats on what an awesome season you had in 2018.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it. I love the show, and keep putting out some awesome stuff. I really enjoy it, and I always tell people, I don't think I'm a better hunter than anybody. I just kind of work pretty hard at it, and I just continue to try to keep on learning, and podcasts like yours, and there's so much content out there right now for people now to learn that if they're not listening to podcasts on hunting and just continue to learn, because you can take little pieces out of everybody's little arsenal, and you can use it in your own little arsenal and improve your odds of killing your target buck.
Yeah, man, that's awesome advice, and it's so true, and it's such a, I want to say, advantage to the new crop of hunters coming up, because me and Paul didn't have that. We didn't have this, social network. Yeah, it was magazines, and that was it. So, but no, Paul's dead on with that stuff, and thanks, Paul, for listening, and man, I can't wait to have you back on again. And like I said, we need to talk offline the next week or two, or at least before May, because I have points for Iowa too, so we need to share some secrets together.
Awesome, yeah, I can't wait. I'm actually going there April 19th. I'm leaving. I'm going there for a turkey hunt, actually. So I'm going to turkey hunt there and check out a couple spots to deer hunt, hopefully, and I'm taking my new Rambo bike with me, and I'm going to use that on the first hunt of the year. So that hopefully is going to be a game changer for me in Iowa and Kansas this year. So
absolutely,
it'll be, pretty awesome. So
yeah, for sure. Well, good luck there. I'm sure I'll speak to you before then, obviously, but we'll be back in touch, and we'll hook up, and hopefully I'll have this show out tomorrow, Paul, but I'll definitely tag you, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks. See you, buddy. Bye-bye.
See you.